Good evening and welcome to our regular meeting of Council this Tuesday, September 5th, 2023 at 7 p.m. Moved by Martin Lang, seconded by Trevor Bougie. Be it resolved that the regular council meeting of September 5th, 2023 be called to order at 7:03 p.m. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none? Carried. Please rise for this singing of our national anthem. Thank you very much. Is there a disclosure of pecuniary interest? Is any on the agenda? Seeing none, moving to the approval of the agenda. Are there any amendments?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, we do have an addition to the agenda this evening under closed session, and it is an item under the potential land sale or acquisition exemption. Additionally, we have a number of items that have been requested to be pulled from the consent agenda to be moved for discussion under items for consideration. Those being items 10A, the accelerated high-speed internet program, 10B, structure 30003 defects notice, and item 10D, the Environment Committee report concerning garbage receptacles.
Okay, moved by Stephanie Jaworski, seconded by Trevor Bougie. Be it resolved that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry approve the agenda as amended. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, carried. So approval of minutes, moved by Stephanie Jaworski, seconded by Sam McDonnell. Be it resolved the minutes of the following meetings be adopted as circulated. Previous meeting minutes, August 8th, 2023. Special council meeting, July 24th, 2023. Special council meeting, July 28th, 2023. Public meeting minutes, August 8th, 2023. Before I call a vote, were there any corrections or omissions noted? None? All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, carried. So we have 3 presentations and delegations this evening. The first is request for hardtop surface. Monica Grunman, you're here to present. Great. If you could come up to the lectern, please turn the mic on. It's the gray button. And just for your knowledge, we don't make decisions this evening. We'll be taking the information. There might be some discussion, and then likely come back at another meeting, possibly budget for some consideration. So please proceed.
So good evening, Mayor and Council. I will read to you a letter that it's up on the board here, but I'll read it to you. It's a kind of a petition letter from the residents on Concession 2 in Banesville, particularly between Concession 2 and 3, okay? Road 2 and 3. So we're requesting a formal, we have a formal request for hardtop Concession 2, second and third line. On June 20th this year, I, Monica Grunman, met with Sarah McDonald and Belinda Dixon at the Town Hall in Lancaster and had a frank yet cordial discussion on behalf of the residents of Concession 2 between second and third line in Banesville, Ontario, regarding our dissatisfaction that we are on a 10-year waiting list to have our 3-kilometer segmented stretch of gravel road paved. We would like to officially request that we are considered at the earliest time frame to having this section replaced to hardtop. We would like to, some residents have been living and having agricultural livelihood since the early 1970s. Many investments have been incurred on upgrades to their land, their drain tiling, leveling of their land, and in more recent times invested in much larger agricultural machinery. They need to use this section of roadway to have to deal with extreme bumpy roads, especially more so this spring, and extreme dustiness. Others have lived there 14 years or less, and also are in shock that one of the first concessions is continually being overlooked or not considered. We all have been paying taxes as others and are wondering why we cannot come to modern times, especially now. As you are all aware of the observations and complaints of past and present residents living with gravel roadways, we will reiterate this again. Dirt roads diminish our property values, are damaging our vehicles and agricultural machinery, causing extreme dustiness to our crops and home life indoors and outdoors during the summer months' enjoyment. And it's unsafe for many new families we have now with young children, cyclists, families, pushing strollers or walking their pets, or unsafe for persons with physical limitations. We would like our situation to be reviewed and considered as soon as possible, and not in 10 years. For some residents, waiting 50 years for this improvement is taxing on the patient's level, especially since concession 2 road between first and second line and third to fourth line are already paved with hardtop. We thank you for your utmost attention and consideration and look forward to further future public discussions to accelerate the requested improvement to our section of roadway.
All right.
So I submitted, I have collected personally myself 36 signatures from the church that's next to us and from all the residents that live on our concession. There are, I think, 10 homes that are involved in that. So, yes, so that's basically it in a nutshell.
No, thank you very much and eloquently presented. I imagine at some point this will be referred to our General Manager of Infrastructure to come back. And I believe, if I'm correct, are we going through a review of our roads right now? And that doesn't mean necessarily that this review will come back favorable, but do we not have a fairly extensive review going on of all our roads, just to give you some idea of timelines to get an answer?
Yes, we do. And as all things that happens in infrastructure services, we are moving slowly, but it is underway.
Okay. Were there any questions or comments of council on this particular delegation? We'll go Deputy Mayor Lang and then Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you for the presentation. It's nice when people come to see us, and I know it's not always easy to go and be the one that takes the lead and goes out and gets the names, and good. Then of course it's you that's elected to come and do the talking too.
It's okay. I am currently on long-term disability. I'm not working, so this has become my mission for whatever time I have left here on Earth. I would like to get this resolved for our residents.
So we may hear from you more than once then.
Pardon me?
We might hear from you more than once.
Oh, yes, I will be here with a smile, but I will be definitely looking to get this thing moving along.
I hear you and understand where you're coming from. I live on a gravel road myself, and it all comes down to money. I mean, we have to be honest. I'd love to see all our gravel roads paved. I find it's not fair to some residents that, you know, in early spring when the snow melts, some residents can take a stroller out and walk their infant or their baby up and down the road, and other residents can't because the gravel roads are too muddy at that time. And then, you know, we put fresh gravel on, and then they're too loose, the gravel, to walk a stroller. And then, you know, in the summer, they're dusty. And then, you know, they get potholes. And it's tough, you know, and we would like to promote an active lifestyle, but it's very difficult to cycle on some of these gravel roads, you know.
Absolutely, yeah.
We have a short gravel road that I'm on, and we can get to the other road, but there's times that you got to be careful or you're going to end up upside down. So I understand where you're coming from. Vehicles are getting to the point they're between $50,000 and $100,000 now, and you like them to look nice, and and look after them. So it would be nice to pave them, but it's just we have to figure out how to pay for this. And we have to find out if people are willing, are people willing to see, a 10 or 15% increase in taxes to be able to do this? It's a tough question, but I hear you. And I appreciate you coming to put a plug in. Keep on us.
Thank you, through you, Mayor McDonald. So I think Deputy Mayor Lang said most of what I already wanted to say and probably said it better than I could have said. But I did want to say thank you for coming, because it is very important that we hear this information, because as Deputy Mayor Lang mentioned, this is very important information to understand how strongly folks want that improved service level, because that does feed into, like the level of taxation, or what other thing would we cut potentially in order to be able to do things like this. And so it is important, and I'm sure this will be in the any staff report that follows, from this. But different types of traffic will require, if they go to a hard surface, they require a different level of hard surface. Some are, can get by with a very, that tar and chip, and some types of service, certain types of vehicles require asphalt, or like a, proper asphalt surface, which is much more expensive. So all things that play into whether or not we can do more of this, considering the cost of construction these days. So thank you very much for coming.
All right. Did you have anything else that you wanted to add, or do you felt sufficiently
Well, our
heard?
stretch is a 3-kilometer stretch. And as I had mentioned in my letter here, we have first and second segment done, but ours is being omitted. Roy's Road, other concessions have been done, but ours, for some reason, it's a 3-kilometer stretch. And I can assure you that all these people that I went to visit in their homes, they are fed up. So I may be one person standing here, but I'm really seriously talking about everybody. It is a 3-kilometer stretch. And we've been living with this for a long, long time. And really, truly would like to see this fixed, whether it's chip or asphalt or whatever the situation is. It's to my understanding, number 26, or second line, is going to be paved next year. It's also to my understanding from a meeting that I had with Sarah and Belinda, that there is a survey being done. I think it's supposed to be completed in October. Hopefully that's still the case, where they're looking at the whole 142 kilometers that need to be hard-topped. So maybe other people aren't talking about it, or they might just call it in, but we're formally really now saying we're serious.
Yes, and you are being received as such. I think Deputy Mayor Lang said it well, as with improved levels of service often come taxation. That's what we will probably battle with come budget 2024, when this in earnest will either be discussed or it will be discussed and then decided upon, and if not, then soon thereafter, because we do want that comprehensive report from administration, so we're not just picking one here and there. We have the whole one, but you have been heard, and as you said, you represent, I think you said, the whole
Well,
church and all the homes, so 36 people, so your voice.
Including the church,
Yes.
which, they have access to. They live they're right next to my home, and they are also using it, and they're tired of this constant being so careful to get into the church. So we have a lot of young children now. One family in particular has had many youngsters under the age of 5, and they need to get from their homes to the farm. Some of the mothers are pushing strollers. We have some people who are not able to walk properly, or using canes, but they want to get out to go for a walk, and it's difficult, when the road is in that state. So anyhow.
Okay, no, those are fine, and I'm sure General Manager of Infrastructure will take all this under advisement as we develop that plan. So thank you for coming and representing the church, as well as the families on your road. And I think that's it. If there's no further questions.
Okay, well, I thank you for having the opportunity to speak with you about this, and Yes, I will be back to see how things are coming along.
Well, thank you. We're glad to have you, and thank you for taking the time.
Yeah.
Next on our agenda was the request to hunt on municipal land. He is not here, so procedurally, I guess I've never had a presenter or a delegation not come. Do we then just move to the next one? Okay, we'll defer it. If he wants to reach out, we can bring him back at another agenda. So we'll move away from that particular one. Oh, or Deputy Mayor Lang?
Even if the delegation presenter's not here, he did write us a letter, so we know, it was pretty detailed. Could we still have staff maybe come back to us? Like, do we have and I'm not even sure, do we have a policy about hunting on our lands? I know the counties do in some of their county forests. Some are a little more restricted than others, depending on the trail systems. And I just wonder if we have something, and if if staff could kind of let us know what it is. Like, I don't personally know what it is.
Okay, and I don't know offhand either, and there might be differences if there's a recreational trail there versus not, and then, we can always look at the Summerstown trails as an example if we don't have one to kind of copy one. But can I send this back? It would be to Ms. Servage? Could you come back perhaps with a little bit more information about what our policy is? Can we do this, or maybe you know that offhand?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. We don't currently have a hunting policy like neighboring municipalities or the county, so that's why this gentleman had actually reached out to me originally, and I had said the only way to move forward would be to have a request to council. So it would just be up to council whether they want to allow it or not. Now, this is the property that is on Sabre Road that is not, it's not maintained as a recreational trail, but it is public property, and I know that there are some people that do walk on it. So, yeah, it would be up to council to decide, but yeah, I don't know if GM of Infrastructure has any other comments, but we could certainly come back with a report unless he wants to come back and do a presentation first.
Councillor McDonnell?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think at this point, I think we give them the opportunity to delegate to us, because maybe there's something we're missing, and it's nothing against staff either, that we're missing as a whole here. Let's maybe let him shine some light on the situation if he wants to take the time, but as of right now, it's more or less correspondence that would come at the end of an agenda, so.
Okay, is council okay with that then? I see a shake. I do see a shake of the head over here. I know, Deputy Mayor Lang, you might speak as opposition to that.
You want me to go now?
Yes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. I think we should have something in place. I'm quite sure that there is a fair amount of hunting happens on our properties already, and I know that a lot of almost any level of government land is almost considered like crown land, and it's almost open to whoever in the public wants to hunt there. So I think we maybe should address this and make sure that we have something. Whether we copy just copy and paste the counties, whatever they have, or this sort of thing, I think we should have something in place. And if he's allowed to, just send a reply to him and say you're allowed to help yourself and go hunting there, if that is our rules.
Okay. Councillor McDonnell?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I guess if we're gonna ask staff then at this point to come back with a staff report, the only thing I would say is reach out to the municipality in North Dundas. I was up there this week. They have a policy on some land they own and have an agreement with the four-wheeler club up there that they close the trails for 2 weeks during shotgun season. So that was a fairly reasonable consent, or kind of fair play, I guess, for both sides. People walking it, and it's closed to walkers for 2 weeks, and hunters get to hunt deer. But just if we are doing that at this point, which sounds we are.
Okay. Yes, please proceed. Sorry.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. If I might make a suggestion, I did have quite a bit of correspondence with Mr. Gendron prior to the meeting, so I'm surprised to not see him here this evening. But what I could do with him being absent this evening is I could follow up with him tomorrow to see if there was any additional information that he had wanted to provide council with tonight, and if he would like to return on the 18th to address council. And if not, if he says, no, I just wanted to present what was in my letter, we could have staff come back with a report and just go without the in-person delegation now that you've received the information, if you're agreeable to that, because our procedure bylaw is silent on. No.
Okay, so it seems that at least in the interim to shortly midterm futures, we would like a bylaw to get this. We're good to copy it. The thought was North Dundas look at theirs. I imagine without a fence, most hunters will find their way to Crown land. Like if it's not fenced, I don't think we want to fence it. So I don't know if saying yes or no will prevent this individual, but I do appreciate him asking us, and that's very, very, very appreciated, and we do appreciate when people come on our land that they do ask. Is there any interest right now to let him for this upcoming season? I know because it is very clearly spelled out there. I think he wanted 3 months with archery hunting included. So is there any want to approve it now or come back? Bring it back. Oh yeah, we're not approving it now. That's true. Coming back with a staff report. That's true. Thank you. Sorry for jumping ahead on that one. Okay, so if we could have a staff report prepared, then with eyes towards getting a policy or bylaw regarding hunting on our township-owned property, that'd be great. So moving to streetlight upgrade project, RTE Energy Solutions, Mr. Wilson.
And if I may, Mr. Mayor, provide Mr. Wilson an introduction.
Yes, please.
Thank you. So as council likely doesn't remember because it was before your term, although those of you who continue along might, on November 7th of last year, our council approved the streetlight upgrade project, and it was awarded to Real-Term Energy, now RTE Energy, and that's who Mr. Wilson represents. So we have come, and this leads into my staff report afterwards, so that's luckily the clerk has put us back to back, so it'll be a good discussion followed by hopefully some decisions. So this project is upgrading all of the Cornwall Electric streetlights from their existing to LED, which will provide the township with energy savings. It's similar to what the township did in 2017-ish with the Hydro One streetlight network. And I'm not overly familiar with streetlights, but I'm hoping that Carrie can illuminate us, so to speak. I'm so funny, so thank you.
Well, you've taken my first joke. Okay. Good evening, everyone, Mr. Mayor, City Council. I'm going to start off. I'm one of the founding partners of Real-Term Energy. We've done, I think, 185 or so Ontario municipalities now, mostly in New England and the U.S. I don't know if you're the very last, but you are going to benefit being one of the last streetlight upgrades in Ontario to LED. Because the prices have come down, the efficacy of the lamps has gotten much better than it was 10 years ago. You have more control over color, and smart controls, which we'll come down to, we'll talk about a little bit, have also become much more efficient, there's been consolidation and technological advances. Now's a good time to get it done. So, as you know, you've seen the report that went around on the Cobra Head upgrade. So I'm going to talk about a decorative upgrade because we were asked to look at the decorative fixtures as well. And then we'll look at the combined project costs and savings of doing them both. That's the Cobra Heads and the decoratives. Sticker shock, the decoratives are a lot more money to buy than the Cobra Heads are. And then I want to, if I can, talk about smart controls. It's just as an option because we found that about half of our clients now, we're in the 325, 350 North American municipal upgrades, about half of them now are going with smart controls. And I'll explain what that is in a minute. So this is what you've got so far. I'm afraid I can't, does anyone know how to fit this bigger? I guess I'll just have to. Yeah, but I mean, it's taking up like 80% of the screen here. Is there any way to maximize the screen? There? Ah. This is a PC, I take it, right? Yes, all right. Oh, there we go, great. I confess to being a Mac guy for a long time. All right, so this is the current project which you've already approved. It has a payback of about 3.6 years. I'm not sure if you can, do you all have that on your screens, by the way? You're all looking at this? Okay, we're all in the same boat. Okay, so I'm thinking that 77 or 78% is the overall reduction in cost that you're going to incur. So in this particular case, that's your maintenance, and this is what your electricity is, baseline for the Cobra Heads only. And what you're going to see, that's going to be your savings, about $35,000. Your maintenance is going to go down to about $2,000, and that'll be your energy costs. Lucky for you that you are actually supplied by its Cornwall Electric or Cornwall Hydro, but it gets its power from Hydro-Quebec, right? Cheapest power in North America. So you get to really benefit from that. So this is the current state of affairs. So I don't know if that was in your report that you saw, but it actually has a very decent greenhouse gas reduction target or a result of about 5 metric tons per year. And the kilowatt savings annually is about 163,000 kilowatt hours. Okay. So the decorative fixtures, this is where we found 55 decorative fixtures, and we went out and priced. We have a method of looking at putting the tender out on your behalf to find what's the most efficient, best decorative fixtures, et cetera, et cetera. We selected the largest manufacturer of them in North America. It's called American Electric. Goes under the brand name Acuity. And to replace those 55 decorative fixtures, and there are 3 or 4 different models of them, there's side mounts and post stops. The total cost would be about $82,000 plus tax, so about almost $93,000 to do that. What that actually does, so this is just the decorative fixtures as a standalone. What you're currently paying is about $1,700 in maintenance, about $5,700 in energy, and you'll have savings on that if just under $6,000. The maintenance would drop down to about $347, give or take, and then the energy down to about $1,350. Again, for just the decorative project itself, I'm having a hard time reading that. It looks like a payback of 11.5 years, and a net savings of is that 95,000? I'm sorry, I can't see it. Whatever. 85? Okay. Again, a 77% reduction in your overall cost. That's phenomenal. When we first started doing this, it was about 62 on a good day. So we apply design to make sure we get the maximum out of these fixtures as we can. We don't waste energy at all. We make sure that the roads are well lit, that the light throws along the road where it has to and across the road where it has to. We've done 350,000 lights, I suppose, lighting designs. So we've gotten pretty good at this. So this is a very good picture of what we expect that the final tally will end up being. Any questions on that so far?
Yes, Councillor Jaworski, and then Deputy Mayor Lang.
All right. Before you keep going, when you did your greenhouse gas reduction calculator, considering that this is power from Quebec and it's hydroelectric, what baseline were you using?
You know what? We used the Canada one.
Okay, Canada average?
Yeah, and
Okay.
you know what? Yeah, it is. It's not the Ontario average, it's the Canada one. But you're right, there's very little greenhouse gases produced in Quebec.
Okay, sorry to be a nitpicker.
I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you pointed that out, because that was an oversight on my part. Sorry, I should have said through you, Mr. Mayor.
That's fine. Deputy Mayor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor,
Sir.
through you. What was the cost? 95?
85 plus tax.
85 with the tax?
Go back one. 82 plus
80.
tax, 90, just under 93.
92, okay. That's labor and everything?
Yes, that's installed. That's a turnkey price.
Is that a good price?
Yes. I don't hesitate. Honestly, I'll tell you something. This is
Well, and I'm putting it out there because, you know, when you first bid on the contract,
Yeah.
you're going to put a good price because you want to win the contract.
Sure.
Once you've got the contract and there's add-ons, you don't need to sharpen your pencil as much because you're going to think to yourself, well, I've already got the job. They're not going to get somebody else in to do this. And I just want to make sure that you give us a good price because this is important to us to get done. We've been trying for a long time to get this. We've been working on this since our first term to get this project to happen. But I wanted to, and then this is unexpected for us. That I don't know who didn't tell us that these decorative ones were there, but anyway, we didn't know about this. So
okay.
make sure give us a good price.
I will, through you, Mr. Mayor, I will give you an honest answer. I have now stood before something like 70 or 75 councils. It's the most fun I have in a week because I go all this way and I'm like, what do you want to ask me? I will answer the question. We've been very good at our job because we answer honestly what it is. When we had this program with LAS, the program is now defunct because everybody's done. We did about 180 municipalities. We had fixed margins that we had to live with. It was a 20% across the board margin. I assure you that this is a lot less than 20%. Okay?
Okay, I'll go Councillor Bougie, and then Councillor Jaworski.
Through Mr. Mayor, my question was in regards to maintenance. So I saw there was quite a reduction in maintenance from about 10,000 overall, I think, to 2,000. And going forward, who's in charge of the maintenance? Is it us that? Do we do that? Maybe that's a question for infrastructure. So do we typically contract that out, or do we do it with internally?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we are responsible. I missed And again, Councillor Bougie, you weren't here for this. It was August of 2022. We purchased these streetlights, so we are responsible for maintenance, and we contracted out, since that's not something we can do in-house.
If I may, through you, Mr. Mayor, currently I think the electrician is Dundas Electric, I believe, is that correct? We've worked a lot with Dundas. Now, that's an estimate. We got from Cornwall Electric, we got an estimate of what the rates are and what the maintenance costs are. And in most of our transactions, 80% is about the right number in terms, they just don't, a regular street light requires relamping every 4 or 5 years. The light goes out. That's how long they last. So every 20 years, you've got to go 4 or 5 times. These are going to last between 17 and 22 years. So unless there's a fault, like, and it could be a fuse that fails, or sometimes the driver fails, very, very seldom does the light board fail, or there's a knockdown or something, your incidence of requiring a service call to that lamp, to any one lamp, is going to be about 80% less.
Councillor Jaworski and then Councillor McDonnell.
Thank you, through you, Mayor McDonald. I have a question, but I'll make a quick comment first. I mean, I think a lot of us have seen that, how they're so much more reliable than new LEDs. Because I know at one point, I think in 2018, when I knocked on doors in Glen Walter, I can't tell you how many people complained about the street lights that would go out or flicker or need to be replaced. And I don't think it rarely was mentioned the last time in 2022. But I have a question, I think it's more to staff, so I think Ms. McDonald, when it comes to a subdivision that going in, if you could remind me who decides whether or not a subdivision would have like decorative lights or standard lights, and who pays for those initial street lights that are put in, please?
Good question, and through you, Mr. Mayor, and Ms. Haley, if you want to jump in at any point. They are proposed through the consultant for the developer and then ultimately approved by us, but the developer puts them in as part of their infrastructure, and we take ownership when we do our acceptance of the work. So for example, Place St. Laurent Phase 5, I believe, that we accepted last year, the streetlights were put in by the developer, and now that we've accepted them, are they final accepted? They will be ours shortly.
I mean, and this, I don't, if you don't have an answer for this today, that's fine. I'm thinking though, like in terms of ongoing maintenance, LED to LED, Cobra head to decorative, would we expect a big difference, like in terms of burden on the township I guess in the end it's ratepayers because it's local improvement, but I'm just curious if the decoratives and the Cobra heads kind of have the same maintenance going forward?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, generally speaking, yes. The decoratives are a little trickier to make sure that they're level and properly mounted because they have different collars to get them on. So we actually put inside this quote a budget for a certain number of evaluations to make sure that they fit right. If they don't fit right, they lean over and it looks terrible. So we're trying to get it right the first time. And in terms of the developer, you'll note that there are no Cobra heads that are not LEDs, and there are no decoratives that are not LEDs going in anywhere because they're not making the parts for them. So you're going to get LEDs at the time of the transfer. Okay? Sir.
Councillor McDonnell.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, what obligation do we have to keep these as decorative lights? Because I'm looking at, to me, the payback on this and the mentality of this has always been in less than 4 years, this will pay itself off and we will have true savings in people's pockets within 4 years. To me, that's, and don't get me wrong, in my business, payback in 11 and a half years is pretty good. But I'm thinking on an asset that only lasts 17 to 20, we're not getting near the efficiency out of this compared to the Cobra heads, just on sheer cost. And we're talking 90,000. It's like 30% of the initial project. So I'm looking at Sarah, do we have an obligation?
Sorry, I just want to clarify through you, Mr. Mayor, that it's not 95 on top of, since those 55 fixtures were bid at the Cobra head price. So it's about 65 on top of the original. Does that make, yeah, just so that we're all talking apples and apples.
Still, I think roughly 30% of the entire project initially bid, right? 165 of a 160 project?
You have a total of, hang on, 323 Cobra heads plus 55 decorative fixtures, so that's 388. You're right. It's a good observation. They are considerably more expensive. It's just the way they're manufactured. They're manufactured by hand as opposed to like a Jetson's efficiency, high-tech line. But you get the same degree of cost savings and energy out of them, but you have to pay 4 or 5 times the price for them. So they will continue, if you don't do them, and that's obviously your choice, they will continue to fail at the regular rate, and then, you won't be able to get parts for them. It's just part of it.
Oh, I guess my question is more along the lines of, do we convert them to, is there a potential to convert them to Cobra heads and just save the entire cost altogether, or make a one-time fee? Because these are going to pay off in 11 and a half years. They're going to have 5 years of lifespan. We'll save all of that energy, but then we'll be replacing them again at that point with probably 120,000 with inflation. Or more.
Yeah, I can't comment. I don't know that to be sure.
It was more, my question was along the lines of the planning. What obligation do we have once a decorative is put in a subdivision to continue with a decorative as opposed to going to something more conventional? And it might be a question that can't be answered tonight, but just a question in general, because to me, this is a large change of scope. It's just the decoratives that are doing this.
Deputy Mayor Lang, and then I see Ms. Haley afterwards.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Are we changing the whole fixture, or are we changing the bulb in the fixture? And then when this bulb burns out, can we change just the bulb the second time?
The LEDs are actually not bulbs. They're diodes on a flat board.
Yeah.
So those can be changed out when they fail.
So at 17 to 20 years, we're not having the same cost because we're not going to be changing the fixtures. We're just going to be changing I'm calling it a bulb, but whatever that flat thing with the yellow.
Yeah, the outer lantern will stay for many, many years, not just the 20. The guts of it, the actual LED, the driver, and the electronics, will have various phase outs over time. It's also weather dependent and stuff. I'm not trying to hedge it. It's going to last a long, long time.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So the initial cost is high because we have to change the actual fixture. We can't just retrofit these to be LED.
Yeah, one of the problems is that they're not made to be done that way. The current lanterns is you suspend a bulb in the middle of it, and all the light radiates around. These things are constructed differently because the bulb, the board, all LEDs are on a flat board, comes down this way. It's possible for us to look at doing, changing these to Cobra heads, or there are cheap, and I say cheap because they are cheap kits that get the job done, but I don't know in 5 or 10 years you're going to regret that because the whole thing has to be done again. There are modular ones that are sort of meant to fit into the existing fixtures. I don't know which ones you've got myself, but it can be done. We don't recommend it, not just because it's not as costly as it could be for margins and things like that. It's just because the technology isn't that great. Better to do it right, and I appreciate the fact that it's a big jump in the cost of the asset, and it's beyond the regular payback. I'm of the opinion if you're going to hang something for 20 years, do it properly. That's kind of but I understand your constraints.
Yeah. I'd like to keep the decorative. I think they're not going to want to go backwards.
All right.
Mrs. Haley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe I can answer Councillor McDonald's question. In terms of subdivision agreements, once a subdivision is approved and the infrastructure is accepted by council, and Ms. McDonald alluded to a little bit of this earlier in her comments, that infrastructure now belongs to the municipality. So we have nothing in our subdivision agreements currently that requires us to stick to a certain standard of light fixture. It would be a decision of the municipality. And in moving forward, I'm not sure if council's aware, but there's an initiative that was undertaken by the United Counties for all the municipalities in SD&G to adopt a subdivision manual. So we all are consistent across SD&G, and street lighting is going to be something that's going to be included in that manual. And maybe Ms. McDonald can jump in here, but if I remember correctly in the meetings that we attended, it was the intent to pick fairly standard light fixtures so that we're not finding ourselves in these situations down the road where we're replacing costly fixtures. I'm looking at Ms. McDonald to make sure I'm saying that correctly. Yes, I thought so. And that we are being as cost effective as we can be for future planning. It might be disappointing maybe to some of the developers if they're looking at having a higher end fixture, but at the end of the day, it's a cost to the municipality. So thank you.
Councillor McDonnell?
I guess just one last question on the topic through you, Mr. Mayor. I guess future replacement of the bulbs then, I thank Deputy Mayor Lang for bringing that up. It's not the entire fixture, I guess, at that point, right? Future maintenance and replacing those bulbs, what will we be, are they comparable to the overheads in cost, or are they slightly more expensive, or?
It's a
It's not
service
an
call.
astronomical change.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, it's a service call at whatever the rate is. What they tend to do is to, if there's 2 or 3, you have a service level agreement with your current lighting contractor.
Sorry, I mean like the physical lights compared to the decorative, compared to a Cobra head?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
the lion's share is the labor to go out there and do it. That's what I'm getting at. It starts there. So if we can do it so, the maintenance can be done, so it isn't urgent that it get done in 24 hours, you'll save a couple $100 there. If we can batch them so they get done over a period of, in a month, get them all done at the end of the month or at the end of 3 months, whatever, unless they're, on critical junctions, whatever. There's ways to cut down on the maintenance costs, and the lion's share of it is that. You're paying for the outside of the fixture and the guts. The driver and the board are not the expensive pieces. It's all that lovely metal. So once you've done that, the likelihood of a costly return trip to that pole is very, very low. Certainly a lot less than you're used to.
Excellent. No, thank you.
Good question.
Okay, please proceed with your.
It's riveting, isn't it? We'll just keep going. All right, so this was doing the decorative fixtures. So what I did, come on there. So this is when you combine the costs of the existing one, the PO that you signed for the Cobras, and doing the decoratives. It adds this, it comes out to be $226,000. So that's for the combined project, it's 4.8 years and a little over $1 million payback over the 20-year, or project savings over the next 20 years. So we just tuck into your 5-year mark, Councillor, by doing them both at the same time. Okay. So that's, any questions on that so far? Pretty dry stuff, I know. Okay, so this is just the graphic of the operating cost comparison. That's your current maintenance, that's your current energy. You're going to basically save overall what you're currently spending on energy almost identically. Your maintenance will drop down to about $2,300, and then your energy drops down a little under 11,000. That's 78% savings. As I say, that's amazing. The light bulbs, pardon the light bulbs, I made my mistake. The light fixtures that we've chosen for this under the RFP are a brand called Leotech. It's a very efficient fixture. It's what Los Angeles, which is the largest LED installation in North America, 14 years ago, they started putting in Cree fixtures, and now they're so much more efficient, the Leotechs, that they're taking the LEDs out that were put in 14 years ago, and they're replacing them all with this model that we've suggested for you. So they're very, very efficient fixtures. So that's the combined, okay? Now, come on, mouse, do your thing. Right, so the combined greenhouse gas metrics there is basically 133 over the lifetime of the luminaires and 6 metric tons per year. So there's a question about smart controls. This is another budget item which it was not part of your scope, but were you to put decorative and Cobra head smart controls on, a smart control, if I go back to that, that's a node that replaces the photocell, okay? It sits on top of the fixture just like a photocell does, but it has two-way communication with a central management system, and you have the power to look at every light on a dashboard. You can dim lights individually or collectively. You can dim at certain times of day, certain times at night, so between like midnight and 4 o'clock. You can save energy that way. With the cooperation of utility, which I don't know about Hydro-Quebec and Cornwall, but it's done in other jurisdictions. You can shave half an hour at dusk and half an hour at dawn. So they come on a little later and they go off a little earlier. Well, it's still light, still safe. You save approximately 1/12 of the 12-hour cycle, which is the same as saving a month a year in your energy costs. It gives you advance notice of many of the faults that these things actually will have, whether it's a blown fuse or a power outage, overvolt, undervolt, even a tilt alarm will tell you if it's been hit. And so rather than sending a truck out there to figure out what's wrong, send the truck back to get the right part, send the truck back out again. In most of the cases, you will know what the fault is, so you load up the truck first, and you make one service call. So it drops the maintenance even further. So that's the advantage of this, okay? It also is the backbone of any sort of smart city connected things. They talk to each other, and you can hook things through them. Okay, I didn't come here to talk about all about this. So Ubicell is the brand name of a company called Ubiquia, which has we put 25,000 Ubiquias up throughout North America. To us, it's the most reliable at this particular price point. There are some that are a lot more expensive. and a lot less friendly, but this one seems to hit that sweet spot. So as an example, because I know it's not part of the scope, we just put this thing here. It says if you want to consider it, we can go forward with it. So it would, if we did it, all of the decorative and the Cobra heads, it would add an additional 66,000 plus tax, so about 74,000 for the total quantity. So that would increase the total project cost to about a little under 300,000, 292, if you wanted to consider that. Now, you may want to send me back to say, oh, give us a lot more details on smart controls. I'm quite prepared to do that. But as I'd be doing you guys a disservice if I didn't give you the option of, at this time, because here's the thing, when you order the streetlight upgrade, they're going to come with photocells unless we put smart controls on, right? You have to, you select one or the other. So now is the time, or soon, is the time to select which way you want to go. So I'm open for any questions, comments.
All right, Deputy Mayor Lang.
Not necessarily to you, but thank you for bringing that up. How are we, just for the staff, how are we paying our electricity to Cornwall Electric? We don't have a meter on all of those lights, I don't believe. Do they not just assume how much power each one's using and bill us that way?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the Cornwall Electric lights are charged on a per kilowatt basis. So there is some level of information that Cornwall Electric collects on the electricity that is being used on those streetlights. We did combine a few of our Cornwall Electric accounts in the past several months, and we've noticed significant reductions to those costs, but they are being charged on a per kilowatt hour basis.
What I'm getting at is if we're not actually metering it, if they're just assuming, we could dim them in the middle of the night and save nothing, because unless they factor that in. But if there is some way that they're metering it, but I don't see a meter in every one of these lights, so I'm assuming they're not being metered, that we're
Here's
being
the thing.
paid a chunk of money.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, in response, there have been now for 7 or 8 years imminent changes to the way Measurement Canada allows things to be metered. And I say so for the last 7 or 8 years because we check. This is one of the things that they're still not allowing, that there is metrology in every one of those nodes. You can in other jurisdictions, they meter off those nodes. So you know exactly what the power consumption is in the 12-hour cycle. If it's dimmed, they know it, you get charged appropriately. Not in Canada yet. This is a Measurement Canada thing. There's 4 roadblocks to it. They're getting better at it. They're getting closer to it. One day, in the life of these things, you'll be able to run you'll be able to be building off the meter, but currently it's not. There are ways around it. They're tricky. You can put up proxy meters, and if you get your utility to sign off on it, there's ways around it. But strictly speaking, you can't use the meter that's in there now, but there is a meter in there. And one day, next year, 3, 5 years from now, I don't know. I've been saying that for 7 years. You'll be able to use the metrology on it.
Councillor McDonnell.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the presentation, and thank you to Ms. McDonald for bringing this. Ms. McDonald made a comment that we might not all remember. I definitely think a good part of us do. I think had this been done when we initially wanted to, we'd have already made our savings back and paid these lights. So it was a challenge, we'll say, to say the least. I'm along the same lines as the deputy mayor. I don't think we're metered right now, and that was kind of along the same lines as me. Once we are allowed to use those as a meter, come back and see us, I think. I don't know that I'm ready to put any more into this. We're already 65 over budget. I don't know that I want to go 125. But I do like the technology. I think it's great, and the day we can meter with those, I just think we've picked enough battles in the last year and a half with Cornwall Electric. I don't need another.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if I may just respond to that.
Sure, and then we'll
Okay.
go to Councillor Jaworski.
It's incumbent upon me to say, not in any way to change your mind, you make a very valid point. The cost of doing that includes sending a truck back with this node, which is about $75 for the labor to do that, and you throw the old photocell away, which has a zero value. There's no residual value for that. So it does incur, I don't know, maybe $125, $150 per node to go and replace those down the road, as opposed to just the incremental cost of $35 or $50 for the node now, while the guy's already up there doing it. I'm just saying, you should know that cost.
Okay, Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you very much, through you, Mayor. Thank you very much for the presentation, and it is all very interesting information, and I am intrigued by the idea of having smart meters, but I also question whether or not we'd get any benefit from it in the time period before we'd actually have to replace these again in 20 years, because considering, as Councillor McDonnell has mentioned, how long it took us to get to this point. And considering that in Cornwall, they don't meter their water either. They're sort of later on a lot of things when it comes to metering. I don't think it's going to happen. So, and also then, you're referring to having people monitoring it and changing things, and that also implies that we have staff that are going to be looking at this, and we don't have that capacity right now. But I do appreciate that there are definite energy cost savings associated with it, but if you can take full advantage of them, and we're not in that position. So, but thank you for mentioning it.
All right, thank you. I don't know if you want to stick around for the presentation because it's up next. So I don't know if you'd like Mr. Wilson sitting beside you. We'll move on to the resolution and staff report or action request 7A, streetlight upgrades.
Do you want me to
project
stay here,
funding.
Sarah? Yes?
So moved by Sam McDonnell, seconded by Martin Lang. Be it resolved that staff report 107, 2023 be received and that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry reallocate surplus funding from the Concession 2 Culvert Replacement Project to the Streetlight Upgrade Project, and furthermore, that the General Manager of Infrastructure Services be authorized to sign all appropriate documents. Ms. McDonald.
Yep. Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. I want to show council the little handout that I provided before the meeting. The first page is kind of a really terrible map, high view of what streetlights were changing, and if you go to the second page, all of the pentagon or the penta-shaped dots are the decoratives. So to give you an idea, the decoratives are all in Place St. Laurent, Sutherland, Phase 2, and Riverview. And after that, I think that Mr. Wilson pretty much said everything that I wanted to say and didn't know how to say, and to the decision.
Okay, well, it appeared around the table, if maybe not of heads, and I'll go to Deputy Mayor Lang in just a moment, is that the lighting fixture seemed to be good, but the surplus, the piece that allows us to smart meter was not something that we were looking to do. So with that in mind, Deputy Mayor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Yeah, I think we've been playing, but I just want to make sure that it's like what you said in your staff report, that we're at, where was it, 65,000, I think. We had a 92 before in the presentation, but I'm assuming that's if they were all the standard ones. Is that what I'm getting at? Just want to make sure we're right. Are we at 92 or 65?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, $1,000. So what Mr. Wilson showed was if we did all of the decorative fixtures on their own, but our original bid included money to convert there's like a difference, right? So it's the 65 is the difference between what we had bid and what we would be paying, or what was bid and what we will be paying, since we're taking off some.
If the decorative ones had been standard, so they were in the final count, they just weren't noted as being decorative.
Correct.
Okay, I'm good with that then, thank you.
May I ask something, just perhaps looking at the resolution as it was read, something that was done last time, and instead of using money for surplus from the culvert, we put the previous council put the system in deficit, and it was very clear. I might, if with support from council, like to change that resolution to read it in that way. Councillor McDonnell.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, 100%. I do not want money from a culvert going into streetlights, because that's it's a direct cost recovery. To me, this isn't saving the municipality any money. This is saving the residents of Glenwalter money. They're the ones that have been overpaying, in my opinion, for way too long, and that's none of our staff's fault. It's commending work to our staff and getting Cornwall Electric to the table, kicking and screaming. But this should not come out of the culvert. If there's $100,000 to be reallocated out of this year's budget to another project, I think that's where it should go, and I would agree with the mayor to put this in deficit for the time being. I do appreciate you highlighting we saved $100,000 doing that culvert. That was, I think, the first thing the deputy mayor and I talked about when we had a phone conversation the other day, but for sure, I don't want to see this reallocated. I'd rather see that money go and do another culvert.
All right, is there some interest from around council to do that? Okay, we're just looking at the bylaws to see if we have to defeat this motion or if it can be a friendly amendment. Well, while we're on this subject, though, I do want to applaud the previous council for and administration for their efforts on this, because it was time taken and well invested $14,000 to have the savings within 5 years. So that's great that way. I don't think the price has changed on streetlights there, so that's something that could always come back at a future date to from the GM of Infrastructure Finance. And additionally, yeah, this is a very, very good thing for that part of the area, because, yeah, it was high pressure sodium was costing us a lot of money. So it's a big win for the township that way and the residents of Glen Walter and on the Cornwall Electric zone. So do you think we can? Okay, so we'll just create a friendly amendment. So we're changing the reallocate surplus funding from concession to culvert replacement project to be received into the Council of Township of South Glengarry. What would you fund it at a deficit for that account? Sorry, just take a moment.
Through you, Mr. Mel, while you figure this out, I'm over here this time. Smart controllers are likely where the township will be going in the next 10 to 15 years, I do believe. And in addition to these really neat ones that we can control back at the office, and again, I do think we'll eventually get there. When next time you're at an AMO or at a Good Roads, circulate around, and there are some vendors that have these things that you put on instead of a photocell, you put them in, and it's not just a smart controller, but they can do like air quality monitoring, they can do traffic counts, they can do noise monitoring. So there's a lot of neat things that we can do on top of our streetlights in the future moving forward with technology that's readily available. So kind of just something to think about for the future, and I'm super happy. Thank you, Carrie, for coming and speaking with us and getting our discussion on smart controllers rolling.
3 members of council can do that tomorrow at Ontario East Municipal in Ottawa. There's 3 members of council at Ontario East this week, so I'm sure they can make a tour around the trade show there and see if they can spot them.
Great, and this also makes it easy for administration to report back to, because it's just part of the year-end process. So at year-end, I remember Councillor McDonnell used to ask, like, where are we on our streetlights for the hydro ones that we paid back? So we can ask that question, and it's just part of the process. So it simplifies things administratively too. So I am going to reread the motion as amended. So moved by Sam McDonnell, seconded by Martin Lang. Be it resolved that staff report 107-2023 be received and that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry fund the streetlight upgrade project from a streetlight account deficit, and furthermore that the General Manager of Infrastructure Services be authorized to sign all appropriate documents. Does that read clearly? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, carried. Thank you very much for your time. So moving to RFQ 13-2023, supply of stone dust, moved by Martin Lang, seconded by Trevor Bougie. Be it resolved that staff report 108-2023 be received and that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry award procurement 13-2023 for the supply of stone dust to Cornwall Gravel Company Limited in accordance with their submission in the amount of $52,422.22, excluding HST, for 3,500 tons of stone dust at a unit cost of $14.98 per ton. And furthermore, that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign all appropriate documents. Ms. McDonald?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The resolution speaks for itself. As you can see in item 4A and B, where we have historical costs are going up. That shouldn't be a surprise to anyone, but this material is needed for our winter operations, and we're recommending that we award the contract. Thank you.
Are there any questions or comments? I see Councillor McDonnell. Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Ms. McDonald, there's a large local supplier missing. I'm assuming we do like we normally do and reach out to them all directly, and there's one that just didn't reply, or it was just put out to tender in general?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it was put out to tender this year. Good question. I don't believe we did reach out to everyone.
Okay. I struggle. I mean, I know Bray and Cornwall and this submission are quite a bit apart. Logistics isn't cheap in transporting stone dust, but I just struggle with it because I am fairly confident I've purchased stone dust for less than this recently in a tandem trailer of.
Okay, Councillor Bougie.
Thank you, through Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I was just curious, I mean, the increase is pretty, it's significant, I guess, another 20% increase on another increase from the year before. Now, is there any way, if we would have got more volume, we would have got a better price, or is there any way we could have joint tendered with the counties on some of this to get a better price, or was that explored?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if we had done a larger volume, we would have had surplus. We actually have surplus from last year's stock, so we really don't need to beef up what we have. In terms of joint tendering with the county, they are mostly a salt-based shop, so they're not looking for this type of material. There was discussions earlier in the year of joint tendering with other municipalities, but they went out quite a bit earlier than we were ready for, and some of them tender all their aggregate under one contract in February. So we missed the boat on those types of tenders.
Thank you.
With the comment of a local supplier that may have not responded, the closest one, yeah, with our bylaws or our procedures, are we allowed to go out and then kind of give a phone call, or is that typically showing favoritism?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, without looking at the exact wording in the bylaw, I believe the only instance where that's specified is when we're doing a request for quotations, and it specifies that we have to reach out to, say, any applicable bidder who has bid on a similar project in an X number of years. But typically, when you're putting out a request for proposals, you wouldn't be calling up certain vendors. It defeats the purpose of a public solicitation.
Okay, that being said, I think if possible, like letting people know that we have a tender out there would be advantageous where we can do it. Councillor McDonnell?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, is there any opportunity to, this is strictly hypothetical, if we defeated it, is there any savings if we went and transported it ourselves? That's even if we're capable of doing that much volume. I know because there is a time constraint on when that has to come in based on, we have to treat it, I believe it's with magnesium going into the storage facility, but if there's some kind of a savings there, because to me, it's astronomical, and our largest supplier in the area didn't even bid on this.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I do not have an answer. If there, would there be a cost savings? Absolutely, because we wouldn't be paying for hauling, but does that negatively impact our operations? I would suspect so. It's days and days of trucks, it seems, just coming and dropping off material. And I don't know if anyone else was aware of this, but Merck's, it was up on Merck's, so we could see the bid takers if we wanted to.
It's a common thing that we've heard before sometimes, like more on our recreational things, sometimes local people either it's not valuable to them or they do miss it. I would imagine a company of that size would likely have somebody looking on those websites. So with that regard, I can still, if there's no further questions, it does say that it is within budget. If we want to, if anyone wants to speak for or against voting for it, I can put it to call. Deputy Mayor Lang?
It's not happy to see something go up 20%, especially when it went up, I don't know if it was 20% last time, but it must have been pretty close. Like we can't afford 20% every year. It's crazy. How close are we I can't remember what we budgeted for it. Are we, is it borderline? Are we comfortable with it? I mean, I just did the math. It's about 160 truckloads if we were to haul it ourselves. I mean, that's going to take a couple of staff forever. It's likely not feasible. They have other things to do. I don't know. We've got lots of mowing to do and so forth, I'm sure, that we're working on. So, not happy, but I'm going to vote in favor, I guess. But it's too bad the other company hadn't bid, And maybe they just don't have the capacity right now, maybe they've got another big job, who knows what the reasoning is, but.
Okay, there was not a question there to be answered? I don't believe you were just, okay. So then I will call it, I don't have to read the motion again. It's 3,500 tons, 52, 422, 22. All those in favor? The motion is read. Any opposed? Carried. Moving to RFP 14, 2023, Glengarry Nor'Westers and Loyalist Museum kitchen renovation. Ms. Servage. Moved by Stephanie Jaworski, seconded by Trevor Bougie. Be it resolved that staff report 109, 2023 be received and that RFP 14, 2023 for the Glengarry Nor'Westers and Loyalist Museum kitchen renovation be awarded to John Gordon Construction as per their submission of $46,727 plus HST, and furthermore that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign all applicable documents. Ms. Servage.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. This report is to award the RFP for the museum kitchen renovation. So we had a tender go out earlier in August, and this is basically just for the update to the kitchen, removal and replacement of existing cabinets and counters. It's going to provide them additional storage, additional shelving, also will allow the kitchen to be renovated to comply with the food premise regulations, and also removal of the tile flooring, which contains asbestos. So that will be good to get that removed and replaced with other flooring. And we had one submission, John Gordon Construction. They did provide 2 layouts. One of the layouts was similar to what the layout already is, and the other one was to optimize the space and create a safer way through the kitchen with moving the stove. And through working with the museum, Kaylee Goodfellow over at the museum, we have reviewed the submission, and they are recommending that we do layout 2 with John Gordon Construction. So unless there's any questions, that's what we're looking to award this evening.
Okay, thank you. I believe this one has been kind of on the to-do list for some time. Deputy Mayor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for the report. Are the layouts, the 2 pictures that we received, are they in order? One is ahead of 2?
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor, that picture is layout 2, and that's all there. You're just seeing layout 2. Yeah, it's the 2 separate
in our
walls.
report, we have both.
No, it's just the one.
Oh, just looking from another.
Yeah, it's just the other angle. So if you scroll down to the other option, or the other picture, that's the other wall.
Okay.
The wall that is against where their office is.
That'd be westward facing, that particular one.
Are both doorways there now?
Yes, there's actually 3 doorways. So there's those 2. The one goes into the reception entranceway.
Okay.
That second to the right is to their back door. And then there's also on the other photo, that is into their hall area, or like
Okay.
their art gallery area.
Okay. I wasn't, the one with the 2 doors, I wasn't recognizing where it was. I've been in that kitchen quite a few times, but. All right. I mean, other than that, I think it's good that we're looking at the one that optimizes the space rather than just repeating what was already there. And it's enough money, but I mean, as far as kitchens go, I'm not surprised.
Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you, through you, Mayor McDonald. Thank you very much, Ms. Servage, to get, I mean, as we've been saying, it's been something that's been discussed for a while, and it's great to see it at this point. And I'm very confident that if the Norwest, like if the museum folks are supporting this layout, that's the layout to go with.
Okay, with no other questions, all those in favor? Any if opposed? Seeing none, carried. And thank you. So now moving to bylaws. 8A, zoning bylaw amendment, Baraha. Ms. Haley. Moved by Sam McDonnell, seconded by Trevor Bougie. Be it resolved that staff report 110, 2023 be received, and that bylaw 61, 2023 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 3809 to rezone the property legally described as part of lot 33 concession 1 in the geographic township of Lancaster, now in the township of South Glengarry in the county of Glengarry, located at 20621 Old Highway 2 from Agriculture AG to Agriculture Exception 35 AG 35. To permit adventure games as an on-farm diversified use of the subject property, be read a first, second, and third time passed, signed, and sealed in open council this 5th day of September 2023. The Council of the Township of South Glengarry confirms that no comments from the public were received on this application, therefore there was no effect on their decision. Mr. Irwin, sorry. Do you have anything to add to that, or is it fairly standard? I think we talked about this online in August, so nothing changed, I imagine, and
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there haven't been any significant changes since the public meeting was held. The subject property is proposed to be entirely rezoned. I can see on the image on the staff report that there is just a small part indicated, but the entire property would be affected by the proposed amendment. In the staff report, you can see that we've gone into the relevant policies regarding the provincial policy statement, the provincial guide on on-farm diversified uses, and the official plan. One of the key ones being that it is going to be permitted as an on-farm diversified use. As an on-farm diversified use, it is going to be limited to a scale of under current regulations, approximately 2% of the land use up to 1 hectare, and can't have any significant impacts on the farming of that land. Beyond that, it complies with the provincial policy statement and the official plan and the guidelines for the on-farm diversified uses.
thank you. Were there any questions further from council? All right, all those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, carried. So we have moved some items out of the consent agenda to be put into items for consideration. 10A, Accelerated High-Speed Internet Program, Structure 3003, Severe Defects Notice, as well as the Environmental Committee Report, Garbage Receptacles. I believe Councillor Jaworski had pulled these three, so go ahead, Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor McDonald. Yeah, I couldn't help myself pulling the first one here, the Accelerated High-Speed Internet Program, just because of how aggressive it is. And it's so aggressive that when I first looked at it, the map that is proposing where they're going to be putting in internet, I thought that there was an error and that I wasn't seeing the color for what's being proposed, because the pink basically looks like our entire road system, and I was confused, so I called Ms. McDonald, who set me straight. But I guess this is a very ambitious plan, and I thought it was very important because I know that our residents keep asking about internet being available, and I would hope that this means that there'll be more competitive options for, folks will have more options to choose from and get more competitive pricing. And I really do hope that they achieve this very aggressive goal by the timelines that they've put out.
Thank you. I also wanted to highlight, I imagine Councillor McDonnell did too. Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, you can actually see this map live if you go online, and you can residents can actually take the time to open it up. The province, through Infrastructure Ontario, has made it very interactive. Unfortunately, it was done slightly a bit in a hurry. If you notice, Bridge End is missing on there, so I'm not sure when my high-speed internet's coming, but ExploreNet's been pretty good to me. The entire areas, to my knowledge, were tendered out, and Rogers was I believe Rogers is our local successful application. So it says 2025. I wouldn't bank on 2025. I'd actually say potentially sooner, depending where they start. And last I heard, there was potentially a deal through Rogers taking high-speed internet across the Quebec border. So that could potentially start us on the east end, as opposed to this project starting closer towards Dundas. So it's definitely great news for our area, and hopefully we see further expansion, and they take some internet across the Bridge End Bridge. So.
Yes, yeah, just great news, so thank you for highlighting it. Structure 3003, Severe Defects Notice, Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you, through you, Mayor McDonald. I pulled this one because, and I guess I just want to preface what I'm about to say is that these are general comments. They're not specific to this situation, but they're inspired, I guess, by this situation. And basically, it's, here we have a culvert that, well, yeah, but I guess the one I'm sort of most, one structure in particular is catching my eye, but we're talking about replacements of culverts in the range of $2 million. And I think when we come up, and that is a huge amount of money. That's our, basically our bridge budget, and this is, and we have multiple bridges across the township. So I guess what I'm saying is I'm hoping that we can start having discussions about some of these where we kind of take a step back and go, do we want to maintain the status quo in this situation? Is it a situation where the culvert that's there today is the right size? Maybe it's oversized, maybe it could be made smaller. Or is this a situation where, and again, this is why I'm saying generic comment, is a situation where we need to maintain that access across that body of water, or are there alternate options close by where, and I'm not saying we close down the whole road, but perhaps in some cases we do not have a culvert or a bridge in that specific location. Obviously, everything has to be looked at, fire, emergency service, all those things, what's around it, what are the uses, but and certainly, we had a delegation earlier today, that's, one we had one not that long ago, a similar delegation asking for paving, or having a hard top. So we know that these requests are here, and maybe this is one way of trying to balance what folks want versus what we're able to do. So I just wanted to put it out there, for future discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, and those are the hard discussions that do come forth. I'd say Ontario and every municipality has an infrastructure deficit. And just to lead into like a little experience from my time at South Dundas, I believe at one point they had 3 bridges that were closed and passable. And these things are coming up. Like it's not just us, but those conversations are heavy, and levels of service and taxation are paramount as we go into budget season as a whole. And I do appreciate not maybe the specific one, but this probably won't be unique across our municipality, but it's a tough spot to find ourselves as well as everybody else. We'll go Councillor McDonnell and then Deputy Mayor Lang.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I won't speak too long on this. I know I spoke to the deputy mayor and he went out and saw them, but to me, it's extremely discouraging to see a cost like that associated with something like this. I know the 3, when you speak of South Dundas and North Dundas and my time running around every back road between here and there for work, there's a lot of roads that aren't overly maintained down there, and Google Maps aren't always your best friend because they do find the shortest way. It's just not always the passable way. So it's hard to turn those fertilizer spreaders around on a road like that. But I guess this is exactly to the point that Councillor Jaworski used. I look at a crossing, or I guess we'll call it a body of water this is crossing. A similar one that we did, or former council did in 2016, 2017. They complained about putting a bridge in for $90,000. So this obviously isn't getting any better. These projects are to the point where they're absolutely devastating to a budget. This could absolutely, if these failed tomorrow and we had to fix them, we'd be above $2 million to get them done in a hurry. So these things are slowly going to kill our budgets as a municipality, and we're going to be seriously looking at different service levels.
After you speak, Deputy Mayor Lang, I would like to something at the counties that is being discussed. I'll bring that up if it's somewhat related to this in terms of funding it. So, Deputy Mayor Lang. Thank
you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. It's tough, and it's tough for staff too. I would like to see us start on this now. I mean, we can have these discussions whether it's necessary to have it or not, but it's tough to go backwards when you've got a level of service that's already there for residents. But I think we should at least look at, like, who knows, when these culverts were put in, they're dual culverts, they're 14 feet in diameter. I measured them this afternoon, like, that's a big culvert, 14 feet from top to bottom. I'm wondering if maybe there was a grant at the time and they put in, like, are they oversized? Can we get away with two 10-foot culverts, you know, like, cut the cost down considerably, and they're between 50 and 60 feet long. So they're huge culverts. I just like to look at the available options. The county's put in some box culverts, like not this big, but I mean box culvert. We bought a box culvert for, you know, we put it in. And it was like $250,000 for the whole project, installation and the buy it in the box culvert. So maybe, you know, a couple of box culverts. I think we better explore all options. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you. I saw Ms. McDonald. Go ahead.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor, this is an estimate to replace these with box culverts. So we went out to the engineering firm who is undertaking our OSIMs, and they provided us with a Class D estimate, and it is, as you say, Deputy Mayor Lang, for box culverts, and the estimate for construction is $2 million, plus you need engineering on top of that, so that gets you up another bunch of percent. Could it be sized smaller? Possibly, and that would be part of the engineering that went into it. We'd do a hydraulic analysis and see what actually is needed with the water that we're seeing in 2023 and what we're expecting in the future. But with something this size, just the removal is big. We have to de-water it and hold the water out and provide like a bypass. Like it's not a small job, and I hope you noticed that at the bottom I said this is not something that we should attempt or think about undertaking in-house. Like this is one that we can replace culverts, but not this one. So, and thank you for taking this report seriously. It was, like you say, Deputy Mayor Lang, and thank you for acknowledging how we as staff sometimes feel. It's not great to get an email saying, hey, Sarah, you have a culvert that's likely going to fail in a year and it's going to be $2 million. Can you come out in chest waders and take a look at it with me? So we go out and then report back as succinctly as we can to council and work together, I suppose, to see where the township goes. So.
Just use the mic, Mr. Mayor. I'm wondering if, because it's the south branch of the Raisin River, I'm wondering if Conservation Authority has flow rates for that, like maximum flow rates, and if that might be able to help us size. You know, they do monitor the flow in the Raisin River, so whether they do that part of the south branch, I'm not sure, but it might be something to look into.
Yes, and for the funding, because like this will be an infrastructure conversation, so it's somewhat topical, is pre-amalgamation like farm tax, and it's not going to the farmers, so don't, please, if somebody reads this, it's not the farmers. The province has never made us whole from that moment, and that, I did whenever I was in North Dundas for a hot moment, I think it was $3.2 million, which is not given back to the townships, and OMPF, which is supposed to make you whole, isn't there. So perhaps this is one thing we should pressure where we can, because it's big. And the anecdotal story would be you wouldn't tax Oshawa Industrial for their car manufacturers at 0.25. But we do it for farm, and again, not our local farmers, just to be made whole. And I see Councillor McDonnell, who probably knows a lot more about provincial politics than I do.
I see you've had that same conversation or done the math for Warden Fraser. I was just going to save you from a terrible headline in the Glengarry News where you think we should tax farmers at 100%. I think what you're getting at is that the provincial government used to make up that 75%. They no longer do, and the program no longer makes it whole. But it's another conversation that should go to the province and the provincial government to say that municipalities are getting killed by these different, by inflation overall on construction and in general. But we just don't have the means to continue to sustain increases like we've seen. So, and it's a point that Mr. Fraser often makes, that GM doesn't pay 0.25% of their land property taxes in city of Oshawa, but our core business industry here in the United Counties isn't technically paying a full rate, and we're left to carry the rest of that. And the province should be making that up, because everyone eats, everyone drives cars. We all benefit as a whole.
Well said, and thank you for the savior from the headlines there, because I hate to have that one misinterpreted. And to dovetail, that just comes back to these bridges there and culverts are sometimes bigger than us, but they're forced upon us. Next up was Environmental Committee report, garbage replacement. Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you, through you, Mayor McDonald. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I did want to highlight that this was something that came up in our Environment Committee recently where we've had discussions. And it's all related, to waste diversion. It's related to the fact that, now we have that 2-bag limit, that we are trying to extend the life of our landfills, that, don't have tons of life left. And it's, how can the township sort of be a leader and be an example when it comes to, waste diversion and recycling as well. I mean, including in waste diversion also, we're including recycling. So I know that some of the infrastructure summer students, they took a look at all the, the waste receptacles that we have around the township, and they took some photos. And, within the committee, we talked about other, bins that other townships might have, and I know staff pulled up some pricing of what some standard sort of examples are of outdoor receptacles and whatnot. So I would like, this is something that I'm hoping we can keep on our mind for budget, for strategic planning. Again, how to, we have long-term planning that we're going to need to do about our landfills. We're going to be having more data about that, and probably within this term of council. We're going to have producer responsibility for blue boxes. There's going to be some changes, but I think, this is all part of how does the township sort of walk the walk on this. And I think this is it's a fairly low cost, but, step that we could take. And so I'm hoping we can have a discussion or have this thought as we move forward into strategic planning or budget discussions.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. Thank you, Stephanie, for bringing it forward. I think it's very important as well. It seems that everywhere if there's a garbage can, there needs to be a recycling can beside it. Just examples at the fair, they had a pile of garbage can, they had a few recycles, but people would come to the garbage can and they would look around for this recycling can at the same place. If it wasn't there, they threw everything in. But they were willing to separate it if the both had been there, but they weren't going to walk another 150 feet to find the recycling can by itself. So it seems wherever we have garbage cans, I think we need to have the both together and both, in working order.
No, all fair points. Saving the lifespan of our landfills, a $1 million proposition. So thank you for those. So now we will move into closed session. Oh, sorry, nope, consent. I must do the rest of the agenda first. Moved by Trevor Bougie, seconded by Sam McDonnell. Be it resolved that council accepts the items listed on the consent agenda. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, carried. So moving into closed session. Moved by Trevor Bougie, seconded by Stephanie Jaworski. Be it resolved that council convene to closed session at 8:31 p.m. to discuss the following items pursuant to section 239(2) of the Municipal Act SO 2001. A meeting or part of a meeting may be closed to the public if the subject matter being considered is B, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, specifically CO recruitment, E, litigation or potential litigation, specifically litigation update, and C, proposed disposition of land. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, carried. So we'll take a Thank you. So moved by Stephanie Jaworski, seconded by Martin Lang. Be it resolved that council rise and reconvene at 9:20 PM into open session without reporting. All those in favor? Any if opposed? Seeing none, carried. Moved by Sam McDonnell, seconded by Stephanie Jaworski. Be it resolved that bylaw 62, 2023, being a bylaw to adopt, confirm, and ratify matters dealt with by resolution, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and sealed in open council this 5th day of September, 2023. All those in favor? Any if opposed? Seeing none, carried. Be it resolved that council of the Township of South Glengarry adjourn to the call of the chair. And just before I do this, if anybody's watching, we do have our community awards this Saturday. So please attend and reach out to the township for tickets. So South Glengarry adjourned to the call of the chair at 9:21 PM. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, carried. Have a good evening, everyone.